Welcome to Stu and the Nunn, an online show and podcast focused on national security, policy, politics, and selfless service. We are here to give you an honest opinion, a different perspective, and hopefully a few laughs. We do this by not only interviewing guests, but also sharing our own perspectives and asking you, the listener, to interact with us on our show chat room, via our Facebook page, and on Twitter.
Machine with a need to bleed you when the light goes green. Best believe I'm in the zone to be. From a yin to my yang to Z. Put a grin on my chin when you come to me. Cause I'll win, I'm a one of a kind. And I'll bring death to the place you're about to be. Another river of blood running under my feet. Forged in a fire lit long ago. Stand next to me, you'll never stand alone. I'm last to leave, but the first to go. Lord, make me dead before you make me whole. I feed on the fear of the devil inside of the enemy faces.
Online show and podcast focused on national security.
Shoot with a mind, kill with a heart like Arctic ice. I am a soldier and I'm marching on. I am a soldier and I'm marching on. I am a warrior, this is my song. I am a warrior and this is my song. I'm basking the glow of the rising war. Lay waste to the ground of an enemy shore. Wade through the blood spilled on the floor. And if another one stands, I'll kill some more. Bullet in the breach and a fire in me. Like a cigarette thrown to gasoline. If death don't bring you fear, I swear you'll fear these marching feet. Come to the nightmare, come to me. Deep down in the dark where the devil be. In the mall where the jaws and the razor teeth.
All right, everyone, welcome to another episode. April 1st. This is not an April Fool's. We are here. We were a couple minutes late, but that's okay because there was a lot of good stuff happening beforehand. And I want to welcome everyone to our show, especially my brother from another motherland in the southern studio in the great city of Georgetown, Texas. What's up, Toby?
Well, it's great to be here. Just enjoying another great Texas weather day, where it's in the 30s in the morning and the 80s in the evening, these 40 to 50 degree swings. I still got flannel because, I put it on this morning and it's like shed a layer, put a layer on. But,
yeah,
I could be in New York, with New York problems.
It was a brisk 20. It's a brisk 29 right now. This morning it was, or for about an hour today, it opened up like it was December again and just snow pouring everywhere, and then turned into nice sunshine later. But the dog was losing his mind. He loves to bite the snow, and he couldn't get it all. But we went through kind of the same thing as far as precipitation and weather, but the temperature stayed pretty chilly. Even though this weekend we are hitting 60. And as Western New York, that's pretty balmy for us. So it'll be good for a good Easter weekend. But yeah, I remember the wet weather well when I was in the great state of Tejas. But
I'm glad to have Texas problems.
That's right. That's much better than New York problems because there is no shortage of those up here. That's for sure.
It appears so. Well,
you definitely got problems if you are a governor working on double digits of sexual assault cases. But you're not having problems if you're smoking the devil's lettuce because they just
99 problems, but weed ain't one.
Weed ain't one anymore. Passed the law yesterday. That's what happens when you get the 10th accuser. You open things up, and we are now in New York. You can have, Toby, I was in high school a long time ago. I'm not going to get it on my past, but this seems like a lot.
I'm not your recruiter either, so.
It seems like a lot to me, but you can have outside your home 3 ounces. 3 ounces seems like a lot if I were to dial it back a few years. Inside your home, you can have 5 pounds. To me, that's a major dealer. But
that's a strong move. It's been a while since I was in high school as well, and I graduated from the great state of Alaska, and man, I bought weed in that's right, confessing to crimes. I bought weed in 1/8 and quarter increments.
Yes,
and of an ounce.
Of an ounce, yes, not a pound.
Of an ounce. And man, I only got the quarter increment when I was super balling. So if you can afford to have
when you got that PFD
3
check,
ounces,
when you got that PFD check in October, That's the only time you could do it. But 3 ounces outside your home and 5 pounds in your home. That's where.
Yeah, no, like that's intent to distribute in some states.
Well, New York, we got bail reform now, right? So you can't arrest anybody. You can get out on bail. You got to let them go. This is all just going to help things. We're defunding police. They have the
you don't need them.
SAFE Act. It's we are 2 steps away from Snake Plissken ending up living in this state, and we're going to start escaping from here pretty soon. But it's
going to be.
That's how those movies came about. I think someone went forward in time and came back and made those movies. But
like Tenet is real.
Yeah. So,
but hey, man, I'm excited because last time tonight's guest was on, I was not.
That's right.
And I missed out. I missed out on the opportunity, and so I'm glad that we were able to get Scott back. Scott,
go ahead. Do the hype. You're the best hype man.
No, like well. Get my party pump on.
Yeah.
Get my hype pump on. So, not only is Scott like an American hero, he is one of the few to don special headgear and to do certain things in special places. That wasn't enough. That challenge, Robin Sage, that wasn't enough of a challenge. Being in the group, not enough of a challenge. He's like, how can I challenge myself more? And that's by putting together one of the most impactful pieces of theater that, and of course we're biased, right? Because, but I want everyone just to wrap their heads around this, because we're going to get, we're going to talk about it again and again and again. We've talked about it again. But one of the reasons why I'm so excited to have Scott on the show is because Scott's done something that has not ever truly been done. And a lot of people don't understand what I'm about to say, but
let me bring him on. Let me bring him on real quick. Let me just
bring. Let everyone see the beautiful face.
That's it. He's got a great background.
Yeah,
he's got the saber
his
back
aura's
there.
going to shine through his glasses. It's going to be great.
That's it. We got a skull. He's got like I don't know, ISIS skull up there on the bookcase. It's those SF guys. My dad shipped a VC skull back from Vietnam to my mom. It must be a Green Beret thing, just to shoot a skull back home, throw it in FedEx, and you're good to go. But that's a whole other story for another time.
Right.
We're definitely going to get into that, because like that definitely sounds like frustrated cargo. No, there's a whole genre of movies, called action and adventure, right? When you think of the stage, and when you think of that medium, when you think of the stage, you don't think action and adventure. You think tragedy, you think comedy, you think in classical means. But something that Scott has been able to do is he's been able to take this dramatic, exciting, adrenaline, all those things that are involved in action and adventure, and then put them onto a stage production. And this isn't this singing and dancing political statement. This is the genuine, the real, the authentic, the gripping, and it's. I always feel like people are like, oh man, that's pretty cool subject matter. Yeah, it's not just the subject matter; it's the delivery, and a lot of people don't get it. And anytime someone asks me about theater, I'm like, you don't understand what theater is until you experience this theater, until you experience this production. So without further ado, the man, the myth, the legend, Scott Mann.
How you
when
doing?
I say man, it was a pun. It was a pun.
I did notice today, by the way, Mann with 2 N's, Nunn with 2 N's. There's something going on there.
Doubling up, double N.
Yeah, what's up, guys? And hey, by the way, like my mom's name is Anita, so I was a tough kid growing up. I was a tough kid. I had to be.
That's almost a letter, Kenny.
That is. I need a man.
Yeah, and in the South, that just sounds so wrong.
Yes. You probably got ridiculed a little bit like Gaylord Fokker.
Are you the son of Anita Man?
Exactly. Yeah, that's new.
Well, hey, welcome back to the show, man. I'm glad we got you here when Toby's here. That we realized, you're not the same person. That like, okay, Toby and Scott are in the same place at the same time. They must be legit. So,
It's awesome to be on with you guys.
yeah, man, you've been busy. You've got a lot. People can see behind you. You've got a few things up there on the wall. A coin or two I see there on the wall. I'm sure there's another rack or two behind you.
Well, yeah, this is that was one of the benefits of finally retiring from the military is my bride let me bring all my I love me stuff into the house. For 20 years I wasn't allowed to do that. It was all out in the garage, and now I got a place where I can actually put it and look at my old teammates and frustrated cargo, as Toby talked about.
Yeah, and you got real books. Unlike a lot of people, since Zoom became popular, have that I could have the book library background to make themselves look smart.
Right on. Where's getting them more reading too?
Yeah, and Toby's got a printer, so we're getting there. He's got a couple books on top of it. It's come a long way. It's come.
I'll see you to put on there. There we go.
There we go. But so Scott, we got you back on. You are a retired lieutenant colonel of the Special Forces. But I'd like you to kind of give our listeners and viewers a little bit more of your career and kind of what you did, so people kind of get the backstory, which will help feed kind of what we're going to talk about tonight.
Yeah, thanks. No, it's so good to be on with you guys. I love hanging out with you, and thanks for having me. I guess I would start with I wanted to be a Green Beret from the time I was 14 years old. I grew up in a little logging town in Mount Ida, Arkansas. We didn't even have a stoplight. I think with population like 987 or something like that. And I was in a soda shop one day, and this guy walks in, and he was from out of town, but he had on what I later learned were Class A's and these blouse jump boots and this funny looking green hat. And he sat down, and I was a runt of a kid, man. I mean, scrawny, had moved around a lot, and just really didn't fit in. And there was just something about this dude that the second I saw him, I knew that's what I was going to do. And I didn't even know what the hell he did. I just knew that the way he carried himself, the way and it wasn't like this dude strutting in there. I mean, he was a young guy. He just kind of sauntered in. He was so unassuming. It really took me back. And I ended up going up and talking to him, and he sat down and he explained to me that he was a Green Beret and what they did. And he explained that, these guys are different than a lot of your other special ops forces that go in and take down targets very quickly and usually unilaterally. And he explained to me that Green Berets are more like relationship based. They're lethal and they're commandos, but they work with indigenous folks, and that's their real hallmark, is that unconventional warfare. And as he was talking, man, I just kept going. He had me, and by the time he was done talking about it, I was ready to join right then. And of course I had to wait a long time, but it never went away from me. That was it. It was solidified. He was a team leader in 5th Group, but I knew I was going to be a team leader, 7th Special Forces Group. Like, I had it all mapped out. The only problem was I weighed about $105 soaking wet, and I decided to try every school in the Army about 17 times before I made it through them. So, but it was great, man. When I got in, I did 23 years in the Army. I did about 18 of that as a Green Beret. The first half of my career as an SF guy was down in Colombia in the Andean Ridge during the 90s, which was a pretty sporty time. And then when 9/11 kicked off, almost exclusively in Afghanistan, working in the southern part of the country with the tribes primarily down there. And it got to be a real passion for me to work with those folks, and had the honor of working with some amazing Afghans and some amazing Green Berets and SEALs and Rangers. And that's where the war was still going when I hung it up. And so that's what got me where I am now, I guess.
Yeah, and hung out and served and ate some of the same dirt as good friends of ours and passed on the show, like Rusty Bradley, and author of Lions of Kandahar, and stuff like that. And you've tromped around that same area, and we've talked about that before. And you experienced a lot. You had a long career. How many deployments did you have?
I did 3 deployments to Afghanistan that were, close to a year, and then I don't even know how many that were somewhere between 3 months and 6 months. And speaking of Rusty Bradley, and Toby, I would never dream on pushing back on you on anything, but that dude is a hero, and his team and what they did in that battle
Yeah.
are heroes. I'm not. I got to hang out with some heroes, and I got to take good notes. And let me tell you something, that man and that team are heroes in my book, and they really, in every step of, in every measure of the work.
Did he ever get a chance, real quick, did he ever get a chance to come see it? I know I reached out to him after you were in Buffalo. Did he get a chance to come to Bragg or Tampa?
I never saw him, Stu. I never saw him. He and I, we're right from the same area in the mountains
Oh,
of North
yeah.
Carolina. Like
Yeah.
we share a lot of history together, and I'd love for him to. Hopefully, he'll see the new project.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'll make sure he gets a link to the show tonight if he's not watching, because we stay in contact every once in a while. But yeah, so I mean, so you got a number of deployments. You saw a number of things, obviously, and not just when at SF, but just military in general, right? And especially in South America and the Seventh Group's, stuff going on down there. A lot of things that people don't know about, never made the news, right?
Right.
And you talked about it early, at the start of this, right? The original mission of Special Forces, right? The FID, what we call the FID mission, right? Where you're working with these indigenous forces, it shows, I don't want to say your age, but shows your maturity and length in the military, because a lot of folks that came in after 9/11 have no concept of that. A lot of SF forces and other forces really don't have that, right? Because they went right into door kicking mode and did that for a long time and never got that opportunity that they probably learned about in the schoolhouse. But when they went down range and got into a team, it was deploy, and it was hunting HVTs and going after people and things like that.
Yeah, in fact, it's one of the things that I talk about in my book, Game Changers, and I talk about in the play is that, and I was part of that, right? So when 9/11 kicked off, one of my Ranger buddy, Cliff Patterson, was killed in the Pentagon, and he was a very dear friend of mine. And that set in motion for me a series of events that basically put me in a trance-like state for about 10 years, of where all I cared about was payback and attribution, retribution. And I don't think I was alone in that sense. And I don't think there's anything, certainly there was a lot of justified vengeance that needed to be dealt. However, what I will say, and I can only speak for myself, I'm not going to speak for my former regiment, I do believe that I over-indexed in that for a decade and got away from my roots as a Green Beret. And it was only in 2010 when we started to move back into the villages in a program that I was fortunate enough to kind of be on the ground floor in, called Village Stability Operations and Afghan Local Police, that we started to get back to our roots. But where I'm going with that, Stu, we were talking to a young group of Green Berets about moving into the villages off of the fire bases in 2010. And this young E6 raised his hand and he said, "All right, sir, I just have a question for you. This living with the locals crap, how long is this going to last before we get back to our original mission of kicking doors?" And I was like, "Oh my God, like what planet am I on?" But that's where we were, man.
Right.
And still are. We are house divided right now as a regiment. It's no secret that we are split down the middle, between those that love the door kicking and the Velcro and those that love the buy with and through, and we have a real identity crisis on our hands.
Yeah, I imagine that's not with the amount of warfare we've been in over the last 20 years. It's not going to be something that ends quickly, right? We've had so many folks on here from the SF community, obviously, that we've talked to, from Rusty Bradley to Jason Amarine, another great friend of ours, right? That took
Jason's great.
that took Karzai into the South, and the first SF team, not the first, but one of the first that came right in, and first one in the South, and so many others, Jim Hansen and good friends of ours that we've talked about the same thing. It's this, how do you get back to that FID mission, which still needs to be accomplished. Right, it still has to be satisfied. It's not door kicking forever, and that's a big need this country has and our military has to be successful.
I think it's something the nation has a need for, because at the end of the day, you guys, we can't go into every country on the planet that has a violent extremism problem, or some other kind of brewing issue, and handle it unilaterally. Like, our force right now is so strained from that, and frankly, politicians and bureaucrats who don't have a clue what it means to deploy a force and recover a force over the long haul. I mean, to me, it is endemic of where we are. And this, my son was 3 years old when the towers fell, and he's now an infantry lieutenant. And there's a very good chance he could find himself over in Afghanistan fighting a war that I didn't finish. And I think that we've got to, to me, the Green Beret mission in particular of by, with, and through, building capacity and helping other countries stand up on their own and finding, local solutions for a lot of these places. Like, we try to come in from the top down and project democracy and all that BS. Like, I love democracy, don't get me wrong. Democracy in tribal Afghanistan is a fool's errand.
Yeah.
And we should have known that, and Green Berets should have kind of led in that, and we didn't until really 2010. And so, and I'll probably lose a few Christmas cards from Bragg on saying that, but it's the truth. And so I think we have to get back to this mission. Again, my play is definitely, that's one of the underlying themes, is it really explores that problem that we encountered in Afghanistan in a very unabashed way.
Yeah, it does.
Well,
Go ahead, Toby.
well, the people agree with you. The military leadership, at least up until a couple months ago, definitely agreed with you. And there was a concerted effort to make and test the special operations community, primarily the special forces, with the FID mission. There's a great unconventional warfare exercise. It started probably 6-7 years ago. A big proponent of it was within the great Republic of Texas. It was called Jade Helm, and the whole purpose was to be operational from the top down, to not just test guys at the team level, but to test and validate all the way up between the team and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. And unfortunately, like politics, put a big damper on. You won't hear anything about Jade Helm anymore because politically it became this disaster, even though the operation and the testing and all that was a success. Politically it was a disaster because, they made it look like, the administration at the time, President Obama, was invading Texas. And, like someone leaked, the slide deck and, presented it as like, oh, look, the Pentagon's invading Texas. You got some like knuckleheads out there. No Gestapo in Bastrappo. I saw like firsthand with my own eyes the protesting of it, and watched the poor lieutenant colonel get up there and like try and defend like what was going on. And it's important that we as a nation understand what our military does, because if you as a civilian without any military experience understand the way you describe special forces, when you started off, you said that it was relationship. It was building relationships, endearing yourself with the local populace, and then assisting them in achieving their peaceful goals, not like their violent means, helping them achieve their peaceful goals. And I actually enjoyed the 12 Strong movie because they kind of touched on that.
Yeah.
I didn't enjoy some of the actors, and and it was like, of course it was Hollywood, but I enjoyed the fact that they were like trying to tell that story, because if more people understood that special forces isn't about how Hollywood you can kick in a door, and if you shoot the round sideways at just the right angle, the big tank will explode, and MacGyver, will come out and save you. No, if they understand that it is the building of relationships to achieve the peaceful goals of the indigenous people, and they would look at it in a whole different light. But
I agree.
We're stuck on violence.
I think building relationships and building capacity are two things that I always talk to my kids about. I think just as Americans, it's two things that we've lost sight of, is building relationships and building capacity, whether that's doing that with our children or in our community. And Green Berets, we have a long history of that since World War II, really, with the OSS and the Jedburgh teams and partisans in Europe and Indonesia. So I'm a big steward of the long Green Beret mission, and I'm you like what I just did there, Stu?
Mm-hmm.
And I always will be, and I think that's what I'm trying to do for the rest of my time on this earth is to share the story of Special Forces in a way that is honest and authentic, and so that maybe through here's what I've learned is I tried it from the stage, like public speaking. I tried it going on the news with Fox and CNN. None of that really worked. The only thing that ever worked was putting it into theater and making the audience feel it.
Yeah, because that's what theater does, right? When we think about the originations of theater, and we think about what we have today. When we can watch movies all day, we can watch TV shows and stuff. But when you go to whether it's your local theater that's running an off-Broadway show, or your local community theater, or even to Broadway itself, you immerse yourself for those couple hours, into maybe it's the history of our country portrayed in like with great music in Hamilton. Maybe it's something as funny, as hilarious as Tootsie, or as different as Oklahoma. I mean, it's all these shows that take you there, and you kind of forget the rest of the world. You kind of forget where you're at. Even in a movie theater, you got popcorn, people getting up and getting down. It's a different experience when you're watching live actors come out, when you have limited set changes, and people are really you're what you're taking in. The entertainment is the talent. There's music, there's a pit, there's backdrops and stuff, but there's not a lot of props. There's not a lot of other stuff. It's really their acting ability that draws you in and makes you feel like you're part of the story.
You're really co-creating the story in real time with your audience, and that's one of the coolest experiences I ever had in my life.
And your play Last Out. If people don't talk, we're talking to Lieutenant Colonel Scott Mann, retired creator, founder of the play Last Out. It does bring the audience, because having sit into two of your shows in Buffalo and New York City, right? Because I'm so happy that my family and I came to New York. We were that much of a believer of it to watch it again. I sat there not only with my own emotions, but you hear the sniffling, crying, gasp, all that in some of the great small venues that you've shown, where it's really personal, as a scene unfolds. And you hear, and it almost makes it like it's three-dimensional. I mean, it's in full stereo, because where you would see AIM crying on stage, you hear people crying around you.
Yeah.
And it's a phenomenal experience. I know you're always up on stage. I don't know if you've ever heard that perspective, or if you haven't, sometimes you need to put some microphones out there, because it is very interesting to hear that. I heard it more in New York because it was a much tighter venue. Yeah. And I also had seen it once, so I kind of knew what to expect. So maybe I was a little bit more heightened to it, but it was very interesting to hear that, and it really pulls you in.
We get that a lot, and one of the locations where I did experience it was, and you and I talked about it a little earlier. We were in Vermilion, South Dakota, and there's a scene where my character Danny, the Green Beret Master Sergeant, is talking with his wife right before he deploys, and she sees a silly band on Danny's wrist, and she's like, where did you get that? And that's Caden's, his son. That's his magic silly band. And in the play, Caden's only around 6 years old or so, and his wife was amazed that he gave her the silly band, and Danny proceeds to tell her that it was a magic silly band, and that Caden gave it to him, even though he values it so highly, because he believes it'll bring me home safe, and I have to keep this thing on. And Len promises him not to, makes him promise not to take it off. Well, that happened to me. Like, that was everything in this play is a real story. Not all happened to me, but that did happen to me, and I had a lot of people tell me to take it off, and I didn't. But the point here is that after that was, so when we were in that scene, I heard this like moaning sound from the front row, and sitting in the front row was a wounded Iraqi veteran named Corey Breest and his wife Jenny, and Corey was rocking side to side. He was blind, and he was gravely wounded from an IED in Iraq. He was paraplegic, but he was rocking to and fro and making like these moaning sounds as I was going through that scene. And it's hard to explain, but I knew he wasn't in pain, and I knew he wasn't upset. I just knew he had me in that moment, like he had me. And so I felt just like this amazing warmth come over me, and I just dropped into the character and the role. And after it was over, Corey and his father came up to me, and Corey was just smiling, and his dad said, Scott, Corey's favorite scene was the silly band. And I said, really? I said, what was it about the silly band that was his favorite scene? And his dad looked at me and smiled, and he said, and I was kneeling in front of Corey at the time in his wheelchair. His dad said, look at his wrist and look at the white ring.
I know. I was sorry, man. I knew this was gonna get you.
That white ring on his wrist, that's where his daughter's silly band was burned into his skin. And I just want to thank you for telling my son's story. And I knew in that moment right there, I was like, oh my God, like, even that, connected with that family in that moment. And never in my wildest dreams would I have thought. And that happened, I'm not kidding you, something like that happened probably 50 times in every city we went to.
Yeah.
And it's just the most amazing, beautiful thing that I've ever been through.
It was almost like you had talked to him, met him before, and wrote that part of the script with him in mind, right? And you wrote it. You just happened to talk about it because it was something that I know a lot of different guys and gals got from their kids and stuff. But it resonated. I mean, it was of all places, right? Little town in South Dakota, right there. He's in the front row, and you talk about it, and that, I mean, he's bearing that for the rest of his life. Right.
And you know what was so cool about that, Stu, was, well, two things. One, as I'll just make a note to anyone watching or listening to this, is that there's a rule in storytelling that I would share with anyone, and it's this. What's personal is universal, right? And a lot of times we omit the personal things in our storytelling because we think that, no one wants to hear that. But the fact of the matter is, humans are remarkably similar in how we're wired. And most of what we're wired around is struggle. And when we have the generosity of scars to tell those personal things in those moments, it's universal, and you never know where it's going to go. And let me give you a quick example. A few days later, after Vermilion, I get a phone call from this lady named Claire, and she says, "Hi, I'm Claire. I'm Tom Brokaw's producer, and I was wondering if we could do a documentary or a piece for NBC on your play." I'm like, sure, but like, how the hell did you hear about us? I mean, we're riding around in a U-Haul. And she said, well, Mr. Brokaw quietly sponsors a family in Vermilion, South Dakota called the Breest family. You may have heard of them. And he just heard about what happened in Vermilion, and he wants to attach his film crew to you for the next 48 hours.
Mm.
And all from that one little show.
And it changed everything.
Yeah. And which brought you to kind of, I don't know if it brought you to the New York City show, but obviously that was a main part of it. Little known fun fact: I got to sit in Tom Brokaw's seat at that show because we got there a tad late fighting New York City traffic, and my wife and son both got seats. You guys were waiting on us, and I know Tom couldn't stay. He did like an opening for you and stuff, and then one of your folks sat there and said, and he had to leave for some other engagement, and then they said, "Oh, here's a seat right for you." And I looked down, and there's this plaque, this little piece of paper, it says Tom Brokaw. Like, you can sit there. I'm like, sweet, I got the best seat in the house. And yeah, that was there, and they did a great documentary. And how was that? Did that, obviously you got a lot of attention through really a groundswell of crowdsourcing and grassroots campaign, but did that Tom Brokaw piece really propel things and get you in a limelight that you had not achieved before?
I think it kind of forced people to take us seriously, because at that point we had put close to 27,000 miles on a U-Haul van. We self-funded this thing plus community host sponsorship, but we broke all the rules of this play. We went, we went to places that, first of all the performers were veterans or military families, and so we would perform it in high school gymnasiums and cafeterias. And when Tom did that piece on us, it really, I think, brought a level of social proof and just depth, maybe weight that maybe we didn't have before. And it did change it for us. And I think it changed it for us. Like, we knew at that moment, it was like, wow, we saw how that came to pass, and we saw the power of what we were doing. And it's kind of the Green Beret approach, is you always go local, and that's how you get strategic outcomes in life. You don't get strategic outcomes from swinging for the fence. There's no home runs in life. They're all singles and doubles following a lot of strikeouts, and that's exactly what happened.
Moneyball.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it on opening day of baseball. So it's it definitely brought some attention there. Did you have a lot of folks? You wrote this for a while. How long did you spend putting this together? Actually, could you just let's take it back a second. I know the story. A lot of our listeners, viewers don't. How did this come about? You didn't sit down and go, I'm going to write a play and go get all these people and we're going to tour the country. How did it originally come about? What was its purpose of even for you to put pen to paper?
Playwright and actor at 50. That's a midlife crisis for you. God, but so I've never acted in my life. I've never written a play. I came out of special forces. I had a terrible transition. I almost killed myself. I was standing in a closet holding a 45 and almost took my life. And it was a couple of mentors, both of them civilian. But one in particular, a guy named Bo Eason, who's a former football player for the Houston Oilers. His brother was Tony Eason, played for the Patriots. But Bo was a great NFL safety, blew his knee out, became a actor, and then wrote a one-person play called Runt of the Litter. It went off Broadway, and it was about him and his brother's journey as farm boys to become NFL players. And Bo mentored me as a public speaker and a storyteller, and he showed me how to take storytelling and use it for catharsis, and to take your struggles and put them into story and repurpose it and help other veterans. And it's changed my life. And I fell in love with storytelling. Bo became a public speaker, and he kept telling me, dude, you got to write a play. Like, you need to write a play. It'll change your life, even if no one ever hears it or sees the light of day. So I finally sat down, and I felt like the catalyst moment for it was, you guys, when my son Cody told me he was going to join the Army and he wanted to go Special Forces. Like, that hit me right between the running lights, man, because I'm like, we're 20 years into this war, and no one even knows we're in Afghanistan. And, like, you know, the things that happened over there that I saw on both administrations, like, we need to learn some lessons here. And so I just started, I needed to do something. I just felt like, you know, is my son going to have dog crap thrown at him? Is it going to come full circle? You know? And so I felt like the story had not been told. So I started writing. It took me almost, over 2.5 years to write it. I had some great people come to my aid, to include Chris Crow from Last of the Mohicans. He helped me write. And then once I got it written, it was another year to get it on its feet and me to learn how to act. I would travel to New York secretly and study under Larry Moss and breath work. And then I had to find the actors, all combat veterans. And then we put it up on Veterans Day, November 2018. There wasn't a theater in Tampa that would rent to us where I live. Not one theater would rent to us, because they were like, no, I don't think so. Like, you know, they wouldn't even take our money. And so we ended up doing it in the Marriott Ballroom. We rented our own lights. We rented our own chairs. We rented our own sound. And we just hoped people would come. And a whole bunch of people came, about 350, to bear witness to my midlife crisis. And it turns out that they liked it. And they asked us to take it on tour. So my wife and I decided to become a production company with our nonprofit, and we went to 16 cities around America, getting communities to host it, and 27,000 miles in a U-Haul van. And and that was how it went until COVID shut us down.
Go ahead, Toby. You got something?
Well, one I've like been, I take notes because there's always so many things that I'm like, I need to ask him this again. But one, I just, you know, your commentary on storytelling, you know, what's personal is universal. Like, that is so profound, yet so simple. And it's, you know, I wanted to identify and acknowledge that, because it's, you know, even though like our experiences might be unique to us, like, they're not unique to mankind. No. Like and you know, that's, you know, in terms of storytelling, you know, I can't remember. I heard it, you know, in some class in college or something, where they're like, there's only this many stories in the world, but there's a million variations of each one of these stories. And, you know, like, and that's what it is. It's the personal take on mankind's experience. And so, like, that should have been the understanding of the theaters in Tampa. Like, the fact that, you know, they didn't, you know, they're like, no, I don't, that's subject matter. That's like, no, it's the story of the human condition. And It's the story, you know, like, this is just a different variation on it. You know, like, I guess maybe it's not the Scottish play, you know, but it's like, but it's a story that you're going to understand. It's going to appeal to you. You're going to get it. And that's why, you know, like, the bold and audacious flanking maneuver to the theatrical world of like going to the Marriott, cashing in some Bonvoy points, getting you some chairs set up that you probably unstacked yourself, and then going 27,000 miles in a U-Haul.
From Santa Barbara to New York City and points in between. And that was our team. I don't talk enough about them. Our whole team are veterans and military family members as well. And Chris and Jimmy, I think you guys met them. They're battle buddies from Iraq, and they drove that U-Haul, taking a leak in Gatorade bottles along the way, and they took our stuff.
Just like they were in Iraq. Just like they were in Iraq.
They were hilarious, and they got it done, and our team was amazing. And just one other point that I want to make, Toby, too, is it was unfortunate that the community in Tampa kind of at least the theater community in the beginning didn't open up to us, but in the end they sure did, and they have come around a lot. And I will say this too, I had a very negative view on the theater community and the acting community before I started, and I tell you, they have been so good to us. They what they've done to help me heal and find my craft, like, I cannot say enough about them, and their receptivity to this story was wildly enthusiastic and still is.
Yeah. It's interesting, right? Having been lucky enough to see it a couple times, it hasn't wavered at all. I tell people, I come out of there just on fire, and I still am. And I tell people this really, it is for the veterans themselves to some degree, but for me, it's more for the person that has no connection to the military. It is, to me, 110% for that person or that family or whatever. Maybe they've had a distant relative, but they don't have a relative that's been involved in the last 20 something years or 30, 40 years with the military. For those that have distant relatives, maybe Korea, World War II, a grandparent, something like that, it would probably it'd probably give them a little bit of a connection. But for the veterans and the families, I know, having sat there myself, and my family sat there, and including you, Matt, my own son also, who deployed right after I did, we were like, yep, we get it. Totally relate. We look at each other. We're like, that was us, and this and that, whatever. But it was those people have never had that connection sitting in there and just like a shotgun in the face, getting not only in a perception or in a view into what it's like to be a veteran or a service member deployed, but more so what it's like for the family. Brian playing your son, Aim playing your wife. Also they play multiple roles, and people have never seen it. We're talking, in the play, 4 actors played multiple roles.
Yeah.
But for them to play those things that people could connect to, because regardless you served in the military or not, a wife still loves her husband and doesn't want to lose him in a car accident, in a anything, right? A parent still loves their child and doesn't want to ever see them go into harm. So that part can connect with someone regardless of military background.
And that's right. And what's personal is universal. And I'd love to take credit for that, but that's actually been around for a while, and I've come to love it. And I think it's true for any story. And I'll just tell you, a couple of things that for this play, there are 4 objectives that all speak to one goal for this play. The number one objective, just like you said, Stu, was to inform the American people and our politicians on the cost of modern war. Whether wherever you come down on war, it was to inform on the cost of war, right? Because my belief is, if we're going to send my son and your son to go fight again, you damn sure need to know what you're asking them to do. And if you don't know, then shame on you as a citizen, right? And shame on us as a citizenry. So that's number one, is inform, and do it in such a way there's nowhere to hide. You are sitting down there and strap in because you're going for the ride, right? We're going to go to the airfield. We're going to go to the hospital where Caden's born. We're going to go where Danny holds his friend for his last moment. And that's where we're going to go. And you're going to go. You got to go with us. And then the second objective is to validate the journey of the men and women and their families who lived it in front of their peers. Because we don't do that enough. It's one thing to say thank you for your service, but it's just like you said, Stu, when you're sitting there with your family and you're in your community and you're going for this ride together, and that's your life up on that stage. And everyone in that room is now empathetically bearing witness to your journey. There's something cathartic in that as a community. And so that validation is really huge. Number 3 is to heal. Because we know for a fact through MRIs and EEG measurements that storytelling heals the brain. warriors have been telling stories to heal since time immemorial. And then the fourth is to connect communities around hard subjects, because we don't do that anymore, right? And this one, I feel like liberal, conservative, Democrat, Republican, mask, no mask, whatever. We watch this play and we're connected. And all of that is to do two words, which is let go. Let go of the pain, let go of the anger, let go of the fear, let go of the trauma, and live a life that you deserve to live. You know, because I feel like, you know, I don't know about you guys, the brothers and sisters that I lost over there, I think more than anything else, that's what they want us to do.
Yeah, absolutely. They want us. We've talked about that on here. Toby and I have, you know, we've had a lot of issues over our show over the number of years where people talk about they don't know how to celebrate Memorial Day, and some people get amped up that like don't call it Happy Memorial Day, and they get all, you know, some veterans get all worked up about this and that. And you know, it's not about, you know, this and that and celebrating and partying. You need to know what this day's for. But at the same time, I think I could speak this for those that we all have lost, and because I think we would all feel the same way, and that is we would not want people to sit around and be mopey. We'd sit there. I mean, the guys that we've served with, we've all served in combat arms, pretty much all male, right? Would sit there and go, dude, drink a beer for me. Have a shot for me, eat a damn good steak for me, right? That's what they would want us to do. They sacrifice, not so this country sits around and just cries and mourns, but goes on and is free and enjoys all the freedoms this country bestows on us. That's what they want us to do. Yeah, remember them, but, you know, have a good time, and because that's what they want us to do that. And if they're looking down, they're going to want to see us having a good time.
I think celebration, rightly understood, you know, is the key. And I will say, you know, in the play, Danny's killed. My character is based on 3 master sergeants that I worked with that didn't come home. He's a composite character, but, you know, he's killed in the first scene. And the reason that I wrote it that way is because an elegy, that's the subtitle, Elegy of a Green Beret, you know, it's a lament for the dead. And it is done in such a way that the only way that Danny could tell this story and really help the audience get their shit together is the only way that could be done is if he spoke from a place where he's deceased. And so, you know, it is a tough story, but it is about restoration and healing and letting go at the end of it. That's my promise to anybody that comes to see it is there is a release and a catharsis at the end of that story that we all deserve.
Yeah. Hey, I know we got a lot more to cover, but I do want to. Big reason we're having you on tonight, and Toby, I promise we're gonna come back, and I know I've seen you taking notes. Is to talk about, you know, you've turned this. You just talked about why people should come see it and stuff. Obviously, with COVID, you had to shut that down all of last year and all that stuff. But you've taken it to the next level, and one of the reasons we're having you on tonight is to talk about you have made bigger investments now and to turn this play into a feature film, right? So it can be, so people can see it no matter if you're on tour or not, right? And they can get experience of it. So we're gonna talk about that more here after this. But I want to you've given us the exclusivity of showing a world premiere and of a trailer from that movie. You wrapped up production in record time, like maybe just a month ago, if that. And this is coming out, and no one else has seen this before outside of the production crew, right?
In fact, you guys are the first podcast I've come on to really talk about this. So
we're gonna show this now. Hopefully, it renders good and shows well. We're gonna play this now. It's about a minute and a few seconds long. I may even show it twice because people probably it's a lot to take in a minute, and then we're going to come back on the backside of that and talk about more about it. You can reference some of the scenes that are quickly shown and follow up on stuff. Is that good? You guys good with that? All right, so here we go, everybody. Here's the world exclusive trailer of the movie Last Out. All right, I couldn't show it to dude. I got goosebumps. It's the fourth time I've seen it, and I got goosebumps just watching it. So, we're gonna leave it at that. It's a trailer, it's a teaser for a reason, and hopefully that teased enough. But Toby, you and I both just got to see it right beforehand. I'd like to open up with just get some of your reflection on that.
Again, it is hard to believe that this is a theatrical production, and and then the awesomeness is like capturing it on film, right? And I'm super excited about this, and this is the kind of stuff I geek out on, because this kind of storytelling, like earlier on, you talked about I always joke, I get invited to comedy shows quite frequently, and the rule is like, don't sit in the front row, right? Because if you sit in the front row, like, you're going to be the target of like the comedians. Like, he's going to know that you're wearing a stupid shirt, you're fat, like you got the hot girlfriend, your wife or whatever, you're the target. When you're in the theater and this is happening around you, there's a connection, between the audience and the performers, the thespians, the actors, the portrayals, and it's a very intimate connection. Like, it's not like you're watching something three-dimensionally. It's not that you're experiencing something three-dimensionally. Is you are in something four-dimensional, and like that storytelling aspect of it is just always so exciting. And then you filmed it. Like, there's a lot of things you could have done. And like, this is the neat thing. There's a lot of ways that you could have done it, but you've accomplished something that, again, like, it's hard for me to explain. I'm having a hard time communicate what I mean by the presentation of the material, the presentation of the play on the stage. But like, there's a lot of ways you could have done it. You recorded the play. I love it.
Yeah. And it was crazy, Toby, because we had the second year of touring set up. We had the hosts assigned. It was another like 18 cities, and COVID hit literally like 2 weeks before our first performance, and it shut us down for a year. And I watched my cast struggle. I watched our team struggle, like so many Americans in here right now. I watched our veteran population like plummet
tremendously.
Ways. I watched our citizenry rip each other apart. I watched our national narrative erode before our eyes, and I thought, man, screw this. Like, I am not waiting for Broadway or a theater to open, right? We need this story more than ever. And so we were at a get-together down the river here, and it wasn't that long ago, guys. I'm talking like, I'm not kidding you, December of 2020. And one of my sound guys, Mark Prater, he goes, you could film this. I'm like, dude, I don't think it would be the same, because Fox Nation filmed it and it didn't really turn out the same. And he's like, no, have you seen what Hamilton did? And I said, no. And he said, they filmed it for camera and they put it on Disney Plus and it's streaming. I was like, all right. So I watched it, and I'd seen Hamilton on Broadway and it was good. I liked it, but I liked the music. Like, I just thought the choreography and stuff. But when I watched the rendering for film, I was like, wow, like, it's still a stage production, but it's for film. Like, it was to camera. And that got me excited. I called Brian and the team up, and I'm like, hey, if we did this, would you do it? And they were like, absolutely. So we got the band back together, every single cast member. We got some initial seed money, and we just went and we filmed it. And I had never in my life performed for camera. I had to start acting classes again for that in like hasty 30 days. And we did it. We shot it, and now we're in post-production right now, and we're going to do a limited release on Memorial Day. We're asking community hosts around the country to host it and like raise $5,000 in their community and share it on their network, and then have a say their name Memorial Day watch party. And we're going to put it out on Vimeo, and then hopefully that'll be Memorial Day, and then we're going to pull it down. And then in November, I'm hoping to launch it on like a major platform somewhere across the country. So that's where it is.
So Memorial Day it'll be the full film, finished product.
Yes.
Right. And then so you've already shot. How long did it take? How many days did you film this entire thing in?
What do you think? How many? Would you guess?
Well, I think I kind of know. I
Oh,
think
do you?
yeah.
Do you know, Toby?
I was a friend of Last Out, so I was kind
Oh,
of following along.
so you have a guess, Toby? How many days it took to film it?
17.
7.
The
No
entire,
way.
The
We
entire
shot
thing.
it 7 days, and we were shooting 14 to 16-hour days.
Toby,
Well,
and I-
well, that's
Toby's been very involved with the film industry. He's consulted on a lot of major movies and everything, so I know
Yeah.
that's,
Oh.
so
that's
like
catching him.
and right. So like, with the exception of like Range 15, most films take a long period of time, and
Yeah.
but I should have thought, and one of the reasons I was like watching the timing of it, because I figured rehearsal time. But again, this is a seasoned cast; they know the material. It's just watching the eye lines and changing that kind of stuff. But the without dealing with unions and that, and just getting down to business, like that's awesome. Like that's awesome.
Yeah.
And
AIM really gets a lot of credit as the director. Like, she brought it all home,
Yeah, and,
Yeah.
and for those that are watching and listening, AIM is the only non-veteran cast member of the play, but a family. She's a military family member, and she was also like the only professional actor and performer that you had right prior to the play.
Well, Brian.
Oh, Brian had done something.
Lenny went to acting school. He didn't really do a lot of acting, and he's a great actor. And then Brian,
Right.
is really becoming quite an accomplished actor himself. But at the time, I think he had some chops, but had not done I don't think he had done theater.
Yeah, and AIM had done quite a bit, and so she
Oh,
directed.
yeah.
She directed this. She directed the film.
She got this film on its feet and this play on its feet. Make no mistake about it.
Yeah, and a wonderful woman. I mean, just as
Absolutely.
down to earth as can be. So I want to kind of dive in a little bit while people are still watching and listening about the Memorial Day weekend. How can people? We're already getting texts. I'm getting messages about people that would like to sponsor and stuff.
I just got one too.
Yeah,
They're like, get
That's-
his information.
yeah. How
I
do
love
they
it.
go about doing that? How do they reach out? Where do they reach out to if they want to be one of the show, party host kind of things?
Okay. All right. So what I think the best thing to do here would be let's have them let's have them send if they're interested in hosting, send it to Carrie at theheroesjourney.org, and I'll give you the address. It's KARI at theheroesjourney.org. That's heroes HEROES.
Yep.
Yeah, we have that website up in the chat room.
And then in a pinch, if for some reason like it doesn't go out, you guys could forward it to me. That would be fine. But but here's the thing, I think this community host program is going to be amazing, and here's why. When we toured, we went to 16 cities. We had community hosts in every city, and it was someone who just raised their hand and said, "I'm going to host it." They got the venue, they got the butts in the seats. They brought the crowd, and it was so cool because like it was their community, right? And they had their own reasons for hosting it. Well, when we started thinking about the film, I was like, well, why don't we just, because Toby, films are expensive. This is a hefty project. This is like a $250,000 project. Plus, we want to open a veteran performing arts center on the other side of this thing for veterans to come tell their story. And so this is an ambitious project. And so what we decided was, hey, what if we recruited 100 hosts from across the country, and we had they do 3 things. Each host raises $5,000 that goes to our GoFundMe site, and they can set up a team to do that. Then they spread the word in their network just using their own organic social media. We'll send the collateral like that, trailers. We're going to shoot more of those. And then just host a watch party, a say their name watch party. Some folks like Brian Knight in Fort Bragg are going to do a brick and mortar watch party, and then they're going to be on Zoom on the big screen. Some people will just do virtual, but just host a watch party in honor of whatever Gold Star families and fallen that you want to honor. And we'll have this thing across America, 100, imagine that, 100 watch parties going on Memorial Day weekend. And you'll get the Vimeo link, and you can just put that link up, and people can, they can watch it, and we're not even charging for it. I just want people in this limited release to see it.
Yeah, to make up pretty much because you can't tour, so it gets it out there, gets them in their homes and on their screens. So the watch parties can either be, like you said, they can be in a location if somebody can set that up, depending on what their local whatever
Yeah, yeah.
COVID rules are, or it could be virtual and people sign up. So is it the concept? I'm trying to make sure I understand it. So, and I want to make sure that our viewers and listeners do. If somebody hosts a watch party and they have a goal of raising 5,000, is it the idea that if someone donates to that, then they're going to be able to get that link too? So even if they're not coming together in a physical location, they by donating they get that link to watch it.
I mean, the bottom line is we're going to make that link available to anybody that wants it.
So it's really it's whether they donate or not. You're just trying to get as many people in front of the screen as possible.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We think that that here's the thing with the community host is one. So, it's a $250,000 project. We've already raised 100. We've already got 20 hosts, and we want to get 100. And what we're telling the host is, come with us like we did on the tour, because we still keep in touch with the host that we toured with. Like, we're family. And that, Stu. I mean, and so what we do is every Monday night we have a Zoom call with all the hosts, and Carrie Ellis, our tour manager, she works with all the hosts. Her husband committed suicide. He's an Air Force veteran, and so she has a real soft spot for mental health, and she's so amazing. And she's our concierge for all our hosts, and so like she gets you all you're basically on kind of the inside track of the production of this thing. We do a Zoom call with you every Monday. We bring the production team in, the marketing team, and we kind of share updates with you. So you're with us every step of the way. And then when we get to the release, that's where we have this big celebration, and we honor our fallen. We show this film, and you host your own watch party. I mean, that's what to me is so cool, is that it's community based, but your community could be, across the whole country. Like, you could have relatives all over the place watching this thing. You send them the link, and then we're going to do a talk back after. We're going to do it like on May 29th at 7 p.m. Eastern. Our watch party is going to go. And so anybody that wants to dial in at that same time, we're going to do like a nationwide talk back, which I think is going to be pretty awesome. I'd love to link up with you guys after that. But it's really simple for the host, man. I mean, it's really just those three things: raise 5K, spread the word, and host a watch party. And then we'll be connected with them all the way through. Like, we'll nurture that relationship all the way.
Awesome. That's. I mean, you have broken a lot of new trail here. I mean, you're the lead dog. I mean, we talked about, coming from walking out of Green Berets, retiring out of the military. You talk about someone reinventing themselves, going in, writing this play, putting this play in tour, doing it all from a grassroots, now putting a film together. Has anyone done these kind of watch parties before? Has this ever been done? I've never heard of this concept.
No, to the best that we can tell, this is the first time that a stage production about war, written by a combat veteran, performed by combat veterans, has ever been brought to film and funded completely by crowdsourcing. Like, and it's mostly fans of the military or veterans that are doing it. Like, we're breaking every rule, and I just think it's so much fun, man. Like, we're definitely taking the SF approach to it, and really just kind of breaking the rules, and I think, if anything, if I could speak to that, is that it's proven that, like, one, everybody's got a story to tell, and don't ever let anyone tell you differently, and don't ever let anyone tell you you're canceled, because that's just BS. Like, everybody's story is so important, and there's really no, you can create a platform in this day and age. Like, look at the platform you guys have built, like, and look at the tribe that you've built around it. You know what I mean? And it's storytelling, and so we have broken rules in a lot of ways, but I think at the end of the day, what we've really done is we've just gotten back to our nature of who we are as humans, and we're just leveraging community.
Yeah. Okay. Toby, I know you guys. We got a comment from Rob, our producer. He has.
I'm putting it up right now.
Okay, so they're asking for Carrie's email address again, and Carrie is she is a sweetheart. I mean, that is another. I mean, the blessing of seeing it twice. I got to meet everyone in Buffalo, but then I got to see everyone again in New York City, and it was great. And Scott, I know you knew I was coming, but I'm not sure the rest of them knew I was coming, because I remember a lot of them. They when I showed up, they were like, they saw me and the fam. They're like, hey, what are you guys doing? They were just like we were some groupies following you around, which I guess we kind of were.
We were so honored to have you guys. I couldn't believe that you came again, and I loved talking to your wife and her, just the journey that she had done with family readiness, and your son, like, his story. He was a medic, right?
Yep. Yeah.
It still sticks with me, and I'm in awe of your family, man, and the miles that you've all run together. And I felt like in so many ways when you guys were there, I honestly, I felt safer. And I just, that you guys were taking care of everybody in the room. I wanted to go back one more comment that you made, I think is super important. And by the way, Toby, I put Carrie's email address in the chat room.
Yeah, we got it up. When I originally typed it fast, it automatically went to .com. I had to go back and correct it to Carrie at theheroesjourney.org at org.
Yeah. So when we did, so I know some people might watch this and like, whoa, okay, that's going to be hard to watch. And like I went and saw Hacksaw Ridge, great movie, but like it affected me, and I kind of walked out of there kind of, out of sorts. One of the things that we take very seriously with this story is when we traveled around, we actually brought trauma interventionists with us because we learned ourselves. I have my own PTS and my own survivor's guilt, and doing the play, I would get triggered, Brian would get triggered, Lenny would get triggered, and we learned how to use breath work, and we also worked a lot of these emerging PTS protocols, and we brought these trauma interventionists in initially to help us so that we didn't lock up on stage, right? And then we would recover after the show, we would do that. But then we started, they would go out in the audience after the show because some folks would be triggered and they would pull them, hey, come on, let's go in this room. I want to work with you. And they would clear them, man. And we did over 200 trauma interventions on the road. In Buffalo, Doc Diego cleared a Korean War veteran who was standing in the audience, an infantryman, and just was weeping, and the work that Doc did with him in that moment was so profound. But the point I would just make, Troy, I think you summed it up best, is that most of the veterans and the family members and the Gold Stars, they saw their life up on that stage and they were taking care of everybody else in the room because the civilians are pretty wrecked. Yeah. The civilians are pretty wrecked by it, but the folks that have lived it, they're like, yep, that was my life. And they're, you're amped, but you're not like, there weren't that many people triggered. And the ones that were, it was a great opportunity to address their trauma.
Yeah, I remember Doc Diego, and you introduced him, and that was impressed. Talk about breaking new trail too. You're like, yeah, we have our own Doc here. If you got ish, he'll talk to you. He's here for us. It was just like, because you have meet and greets afterwards, right? We do, and everyone can talk to you and the whole cast and everybody, and that's where we found out we know a lot of the same people and that kind of stuff, and talking to Lenny and. Yeah, that's another thing. I mean, where else does that? You see a movie like Saving Private Ryan or something, which, so any of those movies that are big feature films that have a lot of realism in them, in the sound, because it's all about the soundtrack and the sound. Yeah. People walk out of those pretty shooken up, pretty amped up, like that. There's nothing to do, right? They're maybe if they're with a civilian buddy, they're just kind of like, hey, you okay? Like, let's go get a drink, right? That's there's no, I don't think anyone's ever even thought of doing that before until you did, to have that kind of care.
And we're going to do it for the film. What we're going to do is when we do the limited release, we're going to have we're going to have Doc Diego, and we're going to have Operation Angel Wing. So we have our own trauma interventionalists, and they're going to be on call for every community host in the nation. So that you sponsor a watch party, or anybody watching it for that matter, we'll make sure that there is a highly trained trauma interventionist who specializes in combat trauma, standing by 24/7 for anything that comes up.
Wow, that's phenomenal. Toby, what you got, man? I've been cutting you off. I know. I'm sorry.
No, I want a caveat. I want to kind of bootstrap on Doc Diego, and that kind of forethought, as a guy that takes people in, out in the woods and with Veteran Outdoors and doing things, and man, the thought of having that there is brilliant, because, like you say, you could watch it, Save It Private Ryan. You could see any of these films and you have that exposure. Hacksaw Ridge, like you said, which I thought was an amazing film. But like, look at how our community, the veteran community, is looking out for itself with that, but really looking out for the greater community. And think about how this could affect the presentation of material in the future, right? So this, I mean, imagine if I'm going to randomly pick a popular television show, Law and Order Special Victims Unit, all right? So imagine if they had a presentation, live audience, and with that kind of subject matter, and they had someone there to like help work through that, help people work through that, and engaged in like that meet and greet, that handshake, that hey, let's take you out, in this room and like give you the moment to process this, and those little things. Can you imagine? I mean, 1952. Like every time I think about war, and anytime like I think about how lucky I was to be in the wars that I was in, because like I wasn't in Korea. I served on the peninsula. I went, like I lived there, for my time there, and I just remember thinking like I can't fathom being in a war like this.
No, man.
And that guy, 1952
Yeah.
to 2019.
And you know what he was doing, Toby, the whole time? He was crying, and Doc and I were talking to him, and you know what he kept saying? He said, "You don't worry about me. Go talk to some of these younger fellas.
Right.
They need you right now." And I just thought, my goodness, where do we find these amazing people? Like, where do we find them? And he was such a gentle soul, and you could, there was so much pain. And what was just amazing was that he had let go. He was letting go of some stuff, and that's been in the other generation that I just think we have done so wrong is our Vietnam generation.
Amen.
Amen. One thing that we started doing this on the road is we would have, so I would, in the talk back, we would have the cast would come back on, and then we would have the veterans, we would have the military family members stand, gold stars first, then military family members, applause, and then we would have our veterans stand, and then I would say, would our Vietnam veterans still please remain standing? And then when everyone sat and they stood, we would be very, very quiet, and we would just look at them while they stood there, and I let it get just super quiet, and then we would stand on the stage and we would say, "Welcome home." And the smiles that we would get for them, and when they would come up afterwards and just be like, that's the first time anyone's ever really said that to me. And we've written in a lot of Vietnam, like my character's dad is a Vietnam veteran. He was a Green Beret in Vietnam, and there's a lot to Vietnam references in this play now, because
Nice.
I think we have done so wrong by them as a society. And I'm gonna tell you guys something right now. We're on a track right now. There's a line that I introduced into this version of the play. So even if you've seen the play, Troy and Toby, it's a new ending, brand new.
Okay.
But there's a line that Danny says to his wife Lynn at the end when they're fighting, that he learns that Caden has joined the army, and he says, what you don't get, Lynn, is that when our dads came home from Vietnam, they threw dog crap at them at the airport. And now they pull me aside, buy me a beer, and thank me for my service. And then they walk outside and they bash their neighbor over the head with an axe handle. Let me ask you a question. How long, with that kind of contempt in our nation, before those dingy yellow ribbons turn to dog crap, and only this time they're throwing it at our son? And I think that's, if we don't wake up from this trance-like state that we're in right now, that is exactly where we're heading with our military. And I'm already, it happened with law enforcement, and it is going to happen with the military if we don't. That's the pressing reason for this film, to be quite honest with you, because they're already trying to characterize the military as racist and all this other BS, and I'm not good with it, man. I'm not good with it. I know it has its problems like any other organization, but I believe that we need to tell this story because it's one of the few remaining institutions that we could actually model some societal things off of that would be good.
Yeah, I mean, just last week, we had, the Vietnam, Veterans Day, and like no fanfare, no,
Yeah.
within the veteran community, of course,
Not,
but
not.
you
I don't think it was last. It was Monday, which is the official end of the Vietnam
yeah,
War. Yeah, that
yeah,
was Monday. Yeah.
like no fanfare,
None.
no,
And think about what they've been
it's
through. Think about what they've been through, man. Like, I mean,
yeah,
I
no,
can't even
it's
imagine.
heartbreaking, really. So like the and we do, like, we owe them a huge debt, you know, uh, internally and externally.
Yeah.
We owe them a huge debt, and man, I really uh, I really appreciate you adding that sentiment about how it's going to circle back, and the pendulum's going to swing and the tide's going to change, because it is.
Yeah.
And what a strong sentiment. I know, Troy, uh, one of the most powerful things Troy ever wrote was uh, about sending his son off to war. Like I yeah. So I'm glad that's been added. I didn't think you could make it any better, and I haven't even heard the delivery of that line yet, but
Yeah.
I already know that the
Wait,
value is
wait,
there.
wait till you see the ending.
I'm pumped. I'm pumped.
Wait till you see
The
the ending. Like, it is. I mean, and it's interesting because so much of the play evolved. One of the things we made a commitment to as actors was that after every talkback, we would sit down and we would rewrite. And we did. Like, the play changed every city we went to.
I'm glad you brought. I wanted to bring that up. That you took these meet and greets after these stories when you came out of the crowd, talked to people, and you not only did we'll talk the wall. Not only did things populate the wall, which is a bookcase. It's in the play. It's one of the props.
Yeah.
But you took those stories, and you yourself and Lenny and Brian, Aim, all of you could tell me about, you were take this and you changed something. This scream's going to be a little bit different, because family members and veterans were coming telling you guys stories, and you were intertwining it. The play continued to change. If someone saw the first one and they saw the last one you did, hell, I saw the Buffalo and the New York City one, which weren't that far apart, and
No.
I saw major changes. I remember afterwards we were hanging out. I'm like, that wasn't in Buffalo. You guys didn't do that. And you were like, yeah, we adapted it. We added that in. We rehearsed it. Boom.
We did every place we went, and it was, and the wall thing, the wall of honor, which is the only true prop in the play. I mean, everything else is just little actors blocks, and we co-create with the audience. So your imagination, the set is, you are in between. Danny is killed in the first scene, and he is in purgatory. He is in between his fire base in Afghanistan and his living room, and he's trying to ascend to the warrior resting place of Valhalla, but he's stuck. And so his best friend Kenny, who was killed on 9/11, comes down with two other operators from Valhalla whose specialty is unsticking warriors, and they assume the shapes of the people who Danny's in his life made his heart pump the most blood. And they take him back through his life from the time he joined Special Forces to gets his Green Beret, meets his wife, has his child, 9/11, multiple deployments, and until he figures out what he's letting go, what he's holding on to, and he lets go, and he has that ascension. But in that 95-minute white knuckle ride, the audience is taken through it, and so we continued to tweak it as we got feedback from the audience, and we would get some. I'm telling you, man, we would get some stuff that was that Vietnam piece, for example. We had a Vietnam veteran stand up in Tampa, and he said, I love this play. It really resonates with me, but you know what? Everybody's forgotten about us. And, it was hard to watch you guys go off to war and get all these yellow ribbons when we had dog crap thrown at us. And I just looked at Brian and I was like, there it is right there. And we went to writing. And now we have VFWs that are sitting in the audience, and they're all Vietnam veterans. And they're totally connected to it. And it wasn't a hard shift because it's a universal story, right? We just needed to broaden the tin a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a good point. It's not a GWAT story. It's not a 9/11 story like that. It absolutely resonates with every generation, even those that weren't in there but had a parent, a grandparent, or something that was there.
I had a lot of people come up to me, guys, and they would say something like this: my dad served in World War II. He drank a lot. He never really talked much. I understand now. Thank you.
As simple as that.
Simple as that. And I mean a lot. And then I had people that had never been around the military, frankly had an aversion to the military, and they would say, with tears in their eyes and wrecked, I had no idea. Thank you.
Yeah.
And it was usually the family part that got them. It was Lynn's scream.
The scream is powerful. That's always the scream is its own thing, and it resonates. I mean, it shocks people of whether they're the military member, family member, whatever, and what she puts into that is absolutely phenomenal.
And you know what? That came from my wife, and I didn't know that even happened until we were writing the play, and I wanted to include her more because there was so much about the family I realized I didn't know. And see, she told me about that, and it happened, and that's how that got written in. And there's not any dialogue in that scene. The only thing in that scene is a scream, but it opens your eyes.
Yeah. Toby, I see a watch party at the MCO. Just saying, not because I'm wearing a hat, MCO hat, but I can.
I know a couple of good locations for it.
You sure do.
Yeah, no, my mind's been turning. I've got probably 2 or 3 texts about people expressing interest or wanting to partner on it.
That's awesome, man.
So we're gonna figure something out.
Yeah,
we'll figure something out.
We'll stay in touch on it. And guys, look, I mean, here's the thing: is the big reason we decided to do this is I just if we're waiting for somebody else to take the lead on getting our country back together and telling the story of our warriors and their families, like nobody's coming, man.
No,
like there's nobody coming, but that's okay because I think that the community that we've got out there right now and this film and the people that have run these miles and again, even if you didn't serve, I guarantee you watch the film and it'll resonate with you and you'll locate yourself in there, and I think I think the country needs a story like this told by people who lived it, and that's really what I think we're the most proud of is that we did live it, and we are coming from that place, and some of it's tough, but for the most part it was our journey, and it was the journey of so many of us, and it's told in a voice that's never really been heard, and that's the people that lived it.
Well, I noticed one thing I noticed in the trailers. You've got that one quick scene of the explosion happening. Obviously, that did not happen in the play. So I'm super excited to see what extra stuff you threw in. Because I know you did throw in a couple extra actors too, right?
We did, and they're surprises. You will know them, but they are also veterans and military family members. You have seen them before if you were with us on tour, and they did a great job. Like, I mean, there's so many cameos. It's really cool. And yeah, we are mixing in some special effects. We're mixing in some animation. But at the end of the day, what I would say is this. It is not a low-budget film. We didn't go for that. This is, no kidding, this is a stage production performed for camera. And I think the audience will really appreciate that because it still has what Toby was talking about, which is that feel that you are right there, fourth wall is down, and you're right there with Danny and his wife and his child at the airfield, and you feel like you're there.
Yeah. So you said it's about a $250,000 budget. You've raised about $100,000. Is that right?
Yeah.
Where if people want to donate now or whatever, where can they find that at? Can they find that off the website?
Probably the easiest place to go is theheroesjourney.org.
Okay.
And we've got a donate button right there, and all of that goes to the play. And you can also go to lastoutplay.com and you can donate there. But those would be the two main places.
So funds are still needed. I mean, you made the film and all that stuff, but there's a lot to it, especially when you start
man. And you know what? We're funding it as we go, and it's really tough, because this is super expensive. And
you didn't get a piece out of that $1.9 trillion COVID bill. You couldn't get
no endowment for the military arts.
No.
Strangely, no.
No, man. I guess it's
awkward.
Yeah. Awesome. Hey, Toby, do you have anything else I don't want to keep Scott.
No, that's that. Just for the audience. Again, we got Scott Mann here. theheroesjourney.org. We just repopulated in the Facebook chat room, but it is theheroesjourney.org. There's a PayPal link that you can click on there to donate. You can go to lastoutplay.com, but you want to learn a little bit more about the man behind all this, you can also get Game Changers. It's available on Amazon. We put that up for everyone to see. It's a best-selling book. Just letting everyone know. Like, our man's multi-talented in terms of storytelling. But I think before we leave, Troy, we're going to get one more opportunity to show the trailer.
Yeah, we sure are. When we close out, I'm gonna show it one more time so people can see it for sure. Scott, is there anything else we didn't cover? Anything you want to highlight before we let you go? And
I think the only thing I would say is, if you're out there and you're struggling, veteran, military family member, Gold Star family member, or not, this pandemic's been hard on folks. We need you around, right? If you're feeling threatened, or you're feeling like you don't want to stick around, know that we need you around, and a lot of people need you around. And if you're feeling like you're in crisis, reach out, call 911, call a friend. Isolation's a rough thing. And to all of our brothers and sisters out there, veterans, is we need you. We need you in the game. We need you leading us at home more than ever. And I think this play shows that. The last thing is, we need your stories. Like, our nonprofit, The Hero's Journey, is focused on helping warriors and family members and first responders find their voice again and tell their story as they come home, because it's the most important transition tool we have. It's the number one transition tool for a warrior, which in their family, which is your story. And there's nothing you can't do if you're connected to your narrative. And that's what we're really after with this play and with this film, is to illustrate the power of story. I mean, we started with no money and a U-Haul van. And it continues to grow, and it continues to resonate, and I just think that's proof positive to anybody that you can do that. And our hope is that when all this is said and done, the proceeds from this, if you donate, we're going to open a veteran performing arts center called Better Ground in Tampa, and it's going to be the National Performing Arts Center for veterans. If you've got music to put up, a play, you want to learn how to act, with story jams, we're going to perform for the community, and it's going to be the Steppenwolf of military performing arts. Like, that's where this is going.
Leader of the pack.
That's it, man. And that's the next phase. So that's what your money's going to, and not only the play, but helping veterans tell their story. That's what I care
love
about.
it.
I think that's what most of us
Love
do.
it.
Thanks for having me on, guys. It's been a real honor. And let's stay plugged in on this thing as we go forward.
Absolutely.
For
hey,
sure.
yeah. Hey, Scott, if you can, hold on for a few minutes after. We want to chat real quick, but we want to wish everyone a good night. We're going to play the trailer one more time. Make sure you check out Last Out on Facebook. They've got a lot of videos up there, clips. If you go to Last Out Play, there's little clippets and snippets up there from the play all throughout the tours. Just to get, if you haven't had a chance to see it, it'll fill in some of the gaps. You'll see some key scenes, and I'm sure it'll just whet your appetite, and you will be biting at the bullet to try to see this come Memorial Day weekend. So with that being said, we're going to play this trailer one more time. Scott, thank you so much. Toby, thank you so much. And we wish everyone a great night and a good start of April. And we will see you all next week, 8 o'clock Eastern, here on Stu and the Nunn.
Thanks, guys.
Well, that wraps up another episode of the Stu and the Nunn Show, and we hope you had as much fun listening to it as we did hosting it for you. Don't forget to like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. You can find all these links at stewandthenunn.com. We will talk to you again next Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. Also, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Commodity Outdoors, Veteran Outdoors, Enlisted 9 Fight Company, Warrior Media Solutions, and BooHammer.com. Thank you again, and have a good night.